and welcome to Escaping Kasterborous, the podcast where we rewatch, reminisce, and review everything Doctor Who from 2005 to present. My name is Rich, and I'm joined by someone who can't go 3 bloody seconds without drawing on the walls. It's Amy.
Wow. Okay. I mean, we
literally had to repaint the bedroom because Amy had drawn like so much crap on the walls with her crayons. Her secret stash of crayons, like her secret chocolate she keeps under the bed.
If anything, it would be sausage rolls, not chocolate, but that's another matter. I repainted the bedroom with my mum because it was disgusting and it needed doing.
She'd drawn all this like Paris crap on one of. She tried to do a feature wall, but A, she did it on the wrong wall, and B, it was horrible.
That wasn't me. That was the last tenants.
Yeah, the last owners of this house had very, 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 very bad taste, and our bedroom was like pink. Like a granny pink.
Like a dusky, dirty pink.
Yeah, with a grayscale with like sort of silvery, glittery Paris wallpaper on one of the walls, and it was like we came to look at this house when I got my new job, and it was like the rest of this house is absolutely perfect, but this, oh good God, please can we repaint this?
And to top it off, they had maroon curtains, a maroon radiator, and all the woodwork in the room was also maroon, so it was like vile. And if we had a place to put like pictures or show notes or anything, I'm sure we would. But just know that the bedroom now is a lovely, nice grey and white, and Lovely. It is clear and beautiful.
Okay, back to the matter at hand. Welcome to episode number. I was gonna say, do I do the Doctor Who episode or do I do the episode of this podcast reboot? Let's stick to the Doctor Who episodes. This is episode 11 of series 2. This is Fear Her, following directly on from Love and Monsters. And this is the episode where Chloe Webber is drawing people snatching kids out of the street. The drawings can move. She's drawn her dead, very, very abusive father in her wardrobe. And yeah, all that happens. And I think I'm going to have to get the elephant out of the room first. And I've now, as of recording this, I've literally just put out a poll on Twitter, on Escaping Kasterborous, at Kasterpod, the Escaping Kasterborous Twitter. No, I can't talk. And I asked the question as to which episode is worse, Love and Monsters or Fear Her.
Did you actually?
Yep.
Oh, nah.
Because in my eyes, this is a double whammy of like, good God, what happened?
I don't hate this at all.
There's a day. There's 24 hours on the poll, so we're going to be like very comfortably done and recorded this by the time this poll finishes. So far, there's only 10 votes.
I'm impressed that there's that many already.
Sorry, 12 votes. 13 votes. It's just on it. It's updating as I have it open here. And currently, Fear Her is winning. And I agree.
For being worse?
I think Fear Her is the worst episode in this series.
How have you phrased the question? Do people understand what you're asking
I put, quick question, which was worse? And then there's Love and Monsters, Fear Her. And currently Fear Her is winning with 69% of the vote.
Do you think, though, that people are going to vote? It's kind of, what's it called in psychology? Is it confirmation bias or something? There's like a term where when you conduct any kind of psychological study, and I'm not saying that this is a psychological study, but for all intents and purposes, it's a psychological study, where the participants will, if you ask the participants a question, they will answer with, it's either confirmation bias or it's something along those lines, but it basically means they will answer how they think you want them to answer. So regardless of what their answer might actually be, they would answer because they think this is what you want to hear. So I'm wondering whether people are answering the question because they think, oh, he obviously wants us to say Love and Monsters because it's so awful. But actually, so there's that to argue the point with as well. This is basically all my sixth form psychology knowledge just nesting at the back of my brain. Like, how do you
just
determine a
coming
study
out for the sake of the Doctor Who podcast, which is the best place for it to appear. No, I'm honestly asking the question. I genuinely just want to know what people's thoughts are on this, because Yeah, I think this is going to be the first big talking point of this episode of EK, because I don't like Fear Her.
I don't. I disagree.
Going into this episode, like, with Love and Monsters, as I said last time, there's a lot of stuff I wanted to like, and I wanted to pick this apart. Going into this episode, it's not that I wasn't willing to give it the time of day again, but I know that my mind has been set on this episode since ever. And for me, Fear Her is just flat and dull.
Okay. I was going to say, what is it you don't like about it?
The concept, the creature concept, the Wajamaflopsit, whatever it was called, Isolus, like that idea of it being like a massive family that goes across the stars and rides the waves, and they survive on each other's love. It's all really nice. It's a nice little twinkle in the universe, and the idea that this is an alien that's using this girl, but not with like malicious intent, but it is transpiring that way. Like, that's cool, but just everything else seems so flat. It's like it doesn't have, like, it's not a super easy one-to-one parallel, but it's like the Idiot's Lantern, but really, really flat. There's more to, like, there's a lot I think you can compare between the Idiot's Lantern and this. People going missing. There's like a big event happening. It's happening in suburban London, and like, as much as obviously The Wire has malicious intent, the Isolus doesn't, but there's just... And it ends with the Doctor and Rose in a street eating cake. Like...
Yeah, but that's just British.
Yeah, I know. But, yeah, I just don't like Fear Her. And bless her, I'm not even going to try and pronounce her name.
Is it
but
difficult?
the young actress who plays Chloe Webber, no. Just no.
You don't like her, do you?
I do not like her. And again, you get young actors in, you're never going to get, like, you're never going to land them all the time, because there are young actors who come through who are so good. But unfortunately, the actress who plays Chloe Webber is not one of them.
I mean, I personally don't find it that bad. I can watch it and be fine enough.
I've regaled my negatives. What are your positives?
Okay. The thing is, it's difficult for me to watch an episode and specifically pick out, unless we discuss it, like, and go into depth, and I think, oh yeah, all that. It's difficult for me to watch an episode and solely then just be able to go, this was good, this was good, this was good. Because I wouldn't say it was a particularly strong, like, incredible episode or anything. Like, I just don't think it's the worst. Like, I don't think it's worse than Love and Monsters.
Right.
Mainly because I feel like, yeah, okay, Chloe Webber's actress's acting might not particularly be, like, top 100, whatever. But I think all the other people around her, like the actress who plays her mum, and also the old lady, I quite like the old lady in this.
Yeah.
Her, like, the mum's acting was really good. The guy who plays the bloody Ketzel, Tarmacker, I like his character. I think it fleshes it out for me in a way that seems like a typical British suburban street. And they are the kind of characters that you would get in a British suburban street. You've got the kind of up your nose dad, you've got the old woman, you've got, like, the tarmackers, and it's obviously a very kind of well-off area because all the houses have their own garages and it's all been, like, freshly paved, and, you know, it's not a neglected area. And I just feel like I don't feel like it's as bad as Fear Her. I know that... sorry, the other way around. I don't feel like it's as bad as Love and Monsters. I know that Love and Monsters was supposed to be kind of like the jokey, let's take a Dr. Light break episode. But I don't know. I don't think Fear Her is as bad. I think it's not spectacular, but I quite enjoy the concept of it being drawings trapped within themselves. Like, that concept, I think, works quite well. I think the idea of somebody drawing something and it all coming to life, because, you know, we've all, as kids, you kind of want your drawings to come to life, don't you? Like, well, I don't know about you, but I was a very, very arty child. So whenever I made something or drew something, I always kind of wanted it to be that little bit more extra special. So the concept of drawings coming to life, I think, is quite a quirky one, because really, when you dive into, like you said, the idea of this, I nearly called it isomalt, which is a type of baking video that I was watching this morning. Sorry. What's it called? I've literally just said
Isolus.
Isolus, that's the one. Okay, you can't blame me. Isomalt is very close to that.
Right.
Because when you dive into the idea of this Isolus literally just being like a lonely kid, then you kind of am like, because I think Chloe Webber's actress, the one thing she did quite well was be creepy. I don't know whether you would agree with me there, but I think she was quite good at being creepy. No. But I don't know whether that's just her kind of natural stance of like the way she looks out the window or whatever, or whether it's coupled with sort of the score of the music and just like
the echo in her voice and all that.
Yeah, stuff like that. I don't know whether it was that more than anything, but I liked the concept. I feel like maybe it could have delved a little bit deeper into something that was supposed to maybe be a little bit more sort of intentional and malicious, but then at the same time, not everything has to be malicious, I guess.
No, it's the beauty of Doctor Who that they don't always have to have malicious intent. But
the thing that I always remember about this episode is the bit at the end when they're singing to try and get rid of the dad, because that song, why?
I mean, a very, very old Australian nursery rhyme of Kookaburra, and it is creepy because I think we have the association with this episode, but also for those in the audience, in the listener pool who used to live on the Doctor Who website like I did, they did have a flash game for Fear Her, which was like I think it was like a scribble through a maze or something, and the whole time was was the Kookaburra nursery rhyme on loop.
No, thank you. I mean, that song creeps me out more than the episode.
That's all I can think of. Like when I hear that now, is the fact that it was on that flash game, and it wasn't a maliciously sounding one. It was a proper just like it's a bunch of kids singing the Kookaburra song, but it was really creepy. And also they say the word gay in it, which obviously back in 2006 was hilarious for some reason because we were kids. But
but I mean, this is the thing. Like, I think genuinely, what mum would choose to sing that song to your child to calm them down. If you sang that to me, I'd be like, Mum, what the hell are you doing? That's really creepy. Can you stop?
Mum, that's not helping me.
It's actually making it worse.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're sat at the bottom of the stairs with this glowing red thing at the top of the stairs, and I think what also makes that bit creepy is the fact that you never like see the dad after he's escaped from the wardrobe. Like, it's just a shadow, and it's just this red glowing light in the shadow and what have you. So that bit always freaked me out, and that is kind of why I don't like this episode. But I don't like it for the reason that I'm supposed to not like it, which is I don't. Does this make sense? So, like, you know, when you
don't like the episode because it spooks you a bit.
No, I'm trying to say, like, yeah. So, like, the reason I don't like it is because it freaks me out, not because I think it's a bad episode.
Right.
Was that coherent? I feel like that makes
sense.
But yeah, so it was a bit creepy, a bit kind of unnecessary. But the one thing I will give credit to in this episode is Billie Piper.
Yes.
I do think she does a very, very good job in this episode. And I think her and the Doctor's relationship in this episode really, really comes through.
It's the peak of their relationship, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, obviously, next up we have the two-parter to end Series 2, which Billie Piper has left Doctor Who at this point, so... Yeah, we know how that's going to go.
But I think it really... Because obviously I always forget that Fear Her is so close to the end of Series 2. I mean, maybe it doesn't help that we took a 6-month break and therefore I'm really off with all my timings of how much of the series we've got through. But the fact that... what's the next one? What's the next 2 episodes called?
Army of Ghosts and Doomsday.
Yeah, okay. So the fact that Army of Ghosts and Doomsday are the next episodes, really kind of, when you realise that, or like if you're watching it through for the first time, you obviously might not realise that, but then the trailer comes in and she's all like, this is my last story and all that jazz. It's like, oh, okay, great. So when you realise that this was the penultimate episode, I know that it's not penultimate episode, but penultimate story.
Penultimate story, yeah.
I think it really hits home how, like, some of the things the Doctor says in this episode that you might just ignore, might just go and miss, might think of as like a bit of a joke. Like that line in the TARDIS when he says someone to hold its hand, someone to do this, someone to do that. And then Rose puts out her hand because she's pointed and the Doctor goes to grab it. And then right at the end, when she thinks the Doctor's not going to come back and she says, who's going to hold his hand now? And it's that little, those few little bits that are kind of like, oh no, something's going to happen.
They're properly leaning into it. I mean, even Rose right at the end, and she's like, nothing can keep us apart for that long. It's like, you've jinxed it, Rose.
And he's
well
like,
done.
never say never ever. It's like, yeah, literally never say never, Rose.
It is a bit on the nose since it's right at the end of the series. If this was earlier on, then it'd be like, oh, okay. But the fact that it's literally right before her final story.
Maybe what they should have done was put that before the Satan pit and those two episodes, because if she'd have said before that, they keep trying to split us up but it's not going to happen, and then they have the Satan pit episode where he's all like, oh, the woman who dies in battle, and she's like, I'm sorry, what? And then he's like, he's lying, blah blah blah, then it might have had a bit more of an impact. But I think obviously there was a week between episodes, so we're kind of left with this whole, oh, we'll never split us up, and then it's like, oh, the finale trailer of like, oh my god, this is my last story and all that.
This is the story of how I died, etc, etc,
etc. That was a bit of a waste. Like, why did you put that line in there literally just to like the next? Because I don't know whether they think about how this is going to go out on air. It's like, you finish the episode, you play the trailer for the next one. Did they think about the fact that it was suddenly going to be like, they keep trying to split us up, but they're not going to, and then all of a sudden it's like, boom, split up.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Doctor is a family show, so they sometimes have to spell things out a little bit more. I mean, this episode specifically, written by Matthew Graham, was one that he said was more intended for kids because it has, drawings and, lots of kids in it, and not cats. To be very... and cute catos, and not to be, like, really dark all of a sudden, but that idea that maybe your parents don't get on. There's that kind of familiarity to, not to say that it's familiar for people to have an abusive father, but it's not exactly an alien concept to a lot of children out there. But I say also abusive father, abusive parents, I should say. Yeah. So there's a potential for a little bit of it hitting home a bit more, and I think that's probably one of the things that I get that they can't lean into, but I would have found it far more interesting of an episode if they somehow did, but without crossing a line, if that makes sense. Like this sort of anger for her father, or this anger that she remembers is what's fueling whatever is, that's making the Ice Solus feel more alone
or like strange.
No, what's with malicious intent, making it feel more malicious. That's the word I was looking for. Like, maybe they could play on that in some way, because that's kind of touched upon, but I feel like that whole arc of her dad and that anger being pushed back, as the Doctor says, the nightmares of her father is what's bringing her father back into reality through this power. I feel like if it was lent more on that, I might have found this episode a bit more interesting, because it felt like there'd be a bit more depth to it. It felt like this was a potential for there to be a bit more chonk in the narrative. Chonk in the narrative, it's a technical term. But everything else feels so flat. The characters feel really flat. That's one of the reasons why I don't like this episode, because pun intended, it's paper thin.
I mean,
and it's been scribbled all over in some extent.
I do agree that, because really, you could take the dad out of this episode and it would still be the same episode, wouldn't it?
I think they needed to add some kind of proper peril.
Yeah, because obviously it's Doctor Who, you've got to have scary moments.
The Doctor being taken, they were so far along the whole process. Like, if obviously another Doctor helps by summoning an Olympic torch out of his arse, but they were 95% of the way through rectifying this whole situation, so it didn't feel like with the Doctor disappearing there's going to be as much peril. It's not like, for example, Father's Day, where the Doctor disappears and it feels like, because the plan was in motion and then it stopped, and the stuff that, you know, the Doctor bringing back the TARDIS, if you've forgotten, I'm not implying to you, Amy, but people who are listening,
the audience,
that when the Doctor's gone, that's it.
Yeah.
And they have to work it out for themselves, whereas Rose already kind of knew what to do. So
she literally just had to find it, pick it up, throw it in some heat.
Yeah, but I admit I had forgotten about the dad does get out and they're at the bottom of the stairs. That's one of the scenes that didn't really stick. Like, basically everything else about the episode, I'm like, yep, I know all of this. But that was one of the things that I don't really remember. And I think that might be why, because it's like, it just feels like such a bolted on bit that it's like, oh, we need a proper bit in here that's actually going to scare kids, because in reality the concept is kind of scary, but if they don't have that visual, like, here's something spooky with a big spooky voice, then otherwise it might fall a bit flat for the kids as well. Because apparently the response to this episode was that kids were like, this is really good, and Matthew Graham had said that I got letters from kids saying I really enjoyed the episode, and then basically everyone over a certain age group was like, well, that was crap.
Yeah,
so,
but then I suppose if you're writing a family show, because I feel as much as a family show is for the family, there are like bits for kids, bit for adults. It's basically kind of to a point where it's like it can be understood by both. I actually feel that in a way, Doctor Who as a whole from 2005 to present is actually more appealing to adults. And I don't know if it's down to the writers who are trying to be a bit more clever or trying to be a bit more appealing or what have you, but I don't feel like you get many stories in Doctor Who that are exclusively for kids. But the last two can be basically, they were for kids, weren't they? Because everything
they didn't find this balance necessarily.
Everything in Love and Monsters was, well, I mean, it was designed. It's
tongue in cheek,
but it was literally like.
There's a lot more to pick up. There's a lot more to pick apart in Love and Monsters.
Oh yeah,
I feel, whereas this doesn't have that.
You say like.
I mean, I say pick apart. It's more that there's more redeeming features for Love and Monsters. I think the concept is better. Fear Her, as said, is paper thin, and admittedly, that's not necessarily on Matthew Graham, because Fear Her, as you could probably guess, was we need an episode quick. It's the Boomtown of series 2.
Filler.
But Boomtown, as we've discussed, is
far
like top tier stuff. Like, people overlook Boomtown so much, but Fear Her, it is the filler episode of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I will agree with that.
Even Love and Monsters doesn't get that same kind of thing. I mean, I get that they needed to do an episode where they had to have Dr. Light. There was a logistical situation that forced it to be that way. But this was literally, Stephen Fry was going to write a script. It didn't happen. And it's like, we need a script. We've got a housing estate. Matthew Graham, off you go, make us a script.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Okay,
so they were trying to make the best of an situation. So, you know.
I mean, I don't think they did too bad. Like, I've never watched this episode and thought, oh, Jesus Christ, turn it off. Like, there are some episodes when I'm doing a rewatch, like, by myself, that I will just wholeheartedly skip. And I'm not ashamed to say that. Most of the time I watch all of them. But there's maybe one or two that I will skip. And I never think to really skip Fear Her. I don't ever feel like it's necessary to skip it. I wouldn't necessarily sit there and be like, oh, yay, Fear Her's coming up. Like, you know, I'm obviously not sort of that bothered by it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think it deserves any sort of hate, but I can also see how it comes across because of the fact that it was more appealing to kids and just generally like not that sort of family oriented, I guess. I don't really know where I'm going.
It doesn't have the broader appeal, as you say. It doesn't hit the mark for the kids and mark for the adults, because I mean, there's one joke that would go over kids' heads, and that was Rose calling them little terrors and having to stop herself from saying shh,
little so-and-sos.
Yeah, little poops, as it were. But otherwise, most of it is all pretty plain. The one thing that I do actually... Okay, one thing I do like about this episode, and this is very specific and very me, when I used to watch this episode, and obviously being I was the kid who lived on special features on DVDs and worked out learning how things were made. It's what inspired me to...
Yes, please.
Hell yeah, it's what inspired me to go into filmmaking and video, and that's where I am now. It was because I was always fascinated how they did stuff. And the scribble monster, as silly as it is, the scene after the Doctor has quote unquote defeated it using a sonic screwdriver, get used to that, kids, takes it into the TARDIS and like holds it in his hand and rubs it out with a pencil, with a razor on the end of the pencil. I was like, kaboom, mind blown as to how they did that effect. I was like, that's so goddamn cool.
Do you know how they did it? Did you ever find out?
Off the top, I don't think they ever explained exactly how they did it. I think that's for something like Doctor Who Confidential, they don't really do breakdowns like that, which is a shame. If I had to give you my
guess,
professional opinion, it would more than likely be that they would have shot David Tennant holding this this graphite ball because it was a physical prop, and he would like sort of rub away with either he had a different shot of his other hand. That they then composited together and then put a background of the TARDIS in, and they would just mask away bits of the ball as he rubbed it over, because after he's done that, you don't see the ball again. He like blows on it and it implies that that he's taken the top off with the eraser, but that's it. You don't see it again.
Well, no, you see it when he's holding it up. So like
you see when he's holding it up.
And then he turns the camera like back to him, and he's got like a gap at the top of it missing.
He might have a gap of it, but like you barely see it in any good detail after that shot, because they might have had one where they had a top of it chopped off or something. But like back then I'd have been like, oh my god, how would you do that? But obviously now that I do this stuff for a living, I'm like, okay, I know how to make something along those lines. Obviously I probably wouldn't be able to make it look as convincing, not that it is as convincing, it's 2006, but you know,
the other thing
that's the kind of thing that I liked. Yes.
Sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting over the top of you.
No.
Really hard. It's really hard when we're on Discord to work out when the other one's finished talking. The other thing we need to talk about is what we mentioned last week was their prediction about being able to live stream stuff on a laptop, because this was 2006. Like that was, I don't even think, like laptops, they were beginning to become a thing, but they weren't like super duper like, oh my god, everyone has a laptop. And the internet was it still dial-up in 2006?
No,
or did
you'd have had broadband and more than likely Wi-Fi by then, but it'd been very, very rudimentary. But yeah, 2006, pushing 6 years in the future in 2012, and you're right. Like seeing the BBC being played on a computer back then was like mind blowing.
And now we just kind of sat here like, oh yeah, it's just.
And now we're most people are in a position where they don't actually use their TV aerial and actually tune for digital channels to get terrestrial TV, because they just use apps on their PlayStation to watch. I would say BBC iPlayer, but the PS5 still doesn't have iPlayer. Come on, BBC.
Stupid BBC.
What the hell? The PS5's been out for like getting towards a year now. And
is it really?
Well, not a year. It came out in November and it's now the summer, but it's like it's been a good,
been like 8 months.
The better half of half of a year. So it's like, why is there still no BBC iPlayer on the PlayStation 5, for God's sake? But yeah, that idea that you could have live TV on your laptop back then, for those of you young'uns, not going to pull rank like that, but like,
we're only 26.
Yeah, but I remember having like, this was back when if you wanted to watch the next time of the episode that's coming on the Doctor Who website, you had to download bloody Real Player.
Oh, yeah.
Because there was no... embedded video was like still... I mean, embedded video 2006, YouTube had only just launched.
Yeah.
So embedded video on the internet, which was technically streaming it, was super future technology. So having to download a bloody Real Player file, I mean, come on. Oh, Real
That's
Player,
crazy.
man. So yeah, that was a proper future prediction that completely came true. That back then seemed so baffling, but by the time 2012, I'm actually going to check. I don't think iPlayer got live TV straight away. I'm pretty certain it didn't. But I'm going to very quickly check as to what year iPlayer actually launched. 2007.
Damn.
But its stable release was 2012. When did they make it? When did they allow it to go live? I don't know. Live.
Just researching.
I'm doing the Control F
Control
on
F.
there.
Oh, right, I see. Just trying to find out.
A license was available to still watch live content. It doesn't specifically say. Oh, hang on.
That's right.
19th of June 2012 on the live TV channels that had a rewind to start button. Maybe it did have live from pretty
much the off.
early on. It doesn't specify exactly when it was, but iPlayer kicking off in like 2007 is crazy.
So they were only really predicting a year in the future, but it's more the fact that people probably, it wasn't very commonplace until it got to sort of a bit later on. Because, I mean, I don't really, like, as a kid, I say as a kid, obviously in 2012, I was 17?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
That took me a minute. So even at 17 years old, I don't particularly recall sitting down with like a laptop and streaming stuff sort of live from TV channels. But then again, back then we probably watched a lot more terrestrial TV than we do now. And so it probably just wasn't that it was very like necessary for me to do that, because we had Sky Plus, so we
had Sky as well.
So we could record, rewind, all that jazz. So streaming it wasn't really that necessary, because if there was anything on, you could just record it, which was so novel. Like, where as soon as we got Sky Plus, I was like, oh my god, you can record.
You can pause and rewind TV.
Like, what
you can skip the
this?
adverts by fast forwarding. No, that doesn't work unless you pause and wait 15 minutes and then start watching what you want to watch.
But yeah, so I don't know. Okay, so they may have only been predicting like a year, 2 years in the future, but it's a much more realistic prediction than, like, some shows or movies like Back to the Future being able to rehydrate a pizza that starts off the size of a penny and ends up the size of like 16 inches or something.
We're still waiting. 6 years later, I'm still waiting to be able to get a pizza in 5 seconds flat. Not that it takes 8 to 10 minutes to cook a frozen pizza in the oven, but that's still too long. I want my pizza now. I'll tell you what though, one thing they didn't predict correctly that I think a lot of us in the year 2012 were very disappointed to not see, and that was when the Olympics opening ceremony in London happened and we did not get David Tennant lighting the flame. 2 years after he left Doctor Who, why didn't he don the costume? And they did such a niche thing, like the world stage, there's Britain, and they allude to David Tennant lighting the Olympic torch. Is like, screw all of those, all the volunteers or the young athletes or something who came and lit all the little funnels that then came together to make the actual Olympic flame. It's like, just get David Tennant in. Who cares about David Beckham on a speedboat, for Christ's sake? Let's get sexy Tennant in and light the Olympic torch. I think I remember being on Twitter, sat in the living room with my family watching the, hour and a half, 2 hour long opening ceremony, and then gets to the end and going, where the hell was David Tennant? Send tweet.
I distinctly remember sort of saying to my sister, I was like, oh my god, can you imagine if they get David Tennant to light the Olympic torch like in that other episode of Doctor Who? And she was like, they won't do that. And I was like, but they should. And she was like, yeah, they won't. And I was just
pretty certain in that whole opening thing, there was only the sound of a TARDIS, apparently, and that was it. For Doctor Who.
The whole opening thing?
The whole opening ceremony of the Olympics. They had the sound of a TARDIS at one point, and that was it.
I'm not
going
to lie,
They had a whole thing with the bloody Spice Girls, and they got
James Bond,
J.K. Rowling, Orcs, all that stuff. They had the big Voldemort,
the parachuting Queen.
Okay, do you know what? When that scene came on of Daniel Craig walking through Buckingham Palace, and I think I remember my mum saying, like, there's no way they got the real Queen. They'll have, a double from the back of their head and all that sort of stuff. And when she turned around, it was actually her. It's like, do you know what? Hats off to you, Liz. The fact that you are so, I'd say so down to earth, you're the bloody Queen.
Well,
so kind of, sort of, not really, but like the fact that you were like, do you know what? Just this once, let's do it. And she actually appears alongside James Bond.
I do remember saying exactly the same thing because me and my sister were like, it's not going to be the real Queen, it's not going to be the real Queen. And then she turned around and we were like, it's the real Queen.
Yo.
If anybody doesn't know what we're on about, if you're not from the UK or like
people
wherever,
would have watched it's the Olympics, come on.
Yeah, but like, you know, it was a long time ago. It was 9 years ago. So
Christ.
If people don't remember, because I don't remember a lot of it, there's been a few Olympic Games since then. Well, I say a few. There's been one, actually. I lie. Because the last one was supposed to happen last year.
We're still waiting for the next one. Oh, my God.
But still, 9 years is a long time. So if you don't know what we're on about, maybe just YouTube the 2012 Olympic opening ceremony.
It was one hell of a spectacle, and I think a logistical nightmare, but they pulled it off. It's really cool. But yeah, there should have been David Tennant at the Olympic Games just to tickle the pickles of all the Doctor Who fans that watched Fear Her, because I think that would have been the amount of, like, you know, patriotic British fan service they did in that opening ceremony at the actual Olympics, and they barely touched Doctor Who. It's like,
really
come
include Doctor Who. It's a cultural staple.
In 2012, Doctor Who is obviously, it's been a cultural phenomenon
like
in the UK
peak.
for nearly 49 years at this point. And especially in 2012, when it got huge over in the States after Matt Smith kicked off as the Doctor in 2010, it's like, come on.
Yeah,
this is when you go, why wasn't there at least just a TARDIS, a police box in the middle of the bloody set? I mean, come on.
Or at least somewhere, or, you know, something that alluded to it, or, you know. Yeah, because it was
not just apparently
like
just the sound of a TARDIS, that's all there was. And it's like, great. Arguably one of the biggest fictional British exports that isn't Harry Potter or Sherlock Holmes.
Basically,
it's
or
Doctor
James
Who.
Bond.
Or Bond. But it's like, you get all of those and you don't get Doctor Who in. Mm-hmm. Come on.
What's the poll at?
The poll, that's probably a good segue to do some questions. The poll is currently at 32 votes, and Fear Her is still winning.
By how much?
With 62% of the vote.
Ooh, damn.
So
that's quite a lot.
If you are voting on this between the hours of, like, what, quarter to eight, or just before 8 o'clock, England are playing right now, actually.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's coming home, guys.
We might actually be able to turn on the match after doing this.
Let's catch a bit of the match, yeah. Just trending at the moment is 2-1 Denmark. It's like, yes, piss off, Twitter.
Is it 2-1 to Denmark?
No, I'm actually, I'm very quickly going to check the score.
Yeah, just check the score. For anybody that's listening to this on a Friday, you'll already know what the score is, but for us, it's 8:15 on Wednesday night.
It's only 14 minutes in, and it's obviously still 0-0.
Oh, okay. Fair.
I mean, I'm just hoping we can get another 4-0 win here, because it's coming home, guys.
I doubt
anyway,
we're
usually don't care about football, but when it's like national team, I'm like, okay, I quite like watching the football. I've always liked watching football. I just don't. I
think
care
I've
for,
watched
league
one match of this season, and that was, I don't know what even match that was. I didn't pay attention to most of it.
It was England-Scotland.
Oh, that was one where they played pants, wasn't it? But anyway, we're not here to talk about football. Anyway,
let's move over to Twitter, because obviously this poll has had a few
responses.
Some things are just like questions, some things are just like people's thoughts. For example, Me 2.0 has said, "Love and Monsters is sick," and I won't hear a word otherwise. Callum Stanley, when I put the tweet out last week saying, get us your questions in, which obviously we ended up not being able to record last week. Callum Stanley put, is this podcast a council podcast? If not, and then it's got a picture of the guy saying, "I'm reporting you to the council." So, Callum, the fact that you remember that's a big joke in it, then that's totally cool.
It's not a council podcast, though. It's not a cancer podcast.
It's not a cancel podcast. So Peter says that they haven't rewatched it yet, but the general memory they have of the episode is that it's slow and boring.
Okay, fair
enough. Is it if so because it falls in between the campy energy of Love and Monsters and the emotional season finale, or is it just written that way? Is it because it falls in? I think it's I think the reason why it has that.
I think it's a mixture of both.
It's the flatness of the fact that it was a filler episode that needed to be produced, and it just didn't have not necessarily the love and effort, but it was a. I think it might have been one of those scripts that seemed pretty cool on paper, but as time is not. It's not aged well. Not that there's like aged jokes. It's just the fact that I think It's just
you can
not
very
that
clearly
great.
see that it's still 2006, despite the fact that it's supposed to be 2012, which also doesn't really work because the
it's not so much
hairstyles are very.
No, I don't mean
2006.
aged as in like the way that it's like the way that you see it now. It's more the fact that I think at the time the script was like, oh, this seems pretty solid, but over time it's like actually,
I see.
It's like going back to something and realizing it's not as good as you thought it was, and I think that's the main loss of this because I don't remember like hating this when I was younger. I think as I grew up and rewatched it over and over again, I realized this maybe isn't all that good. So Adam says that this episode had potential, but it had so much going on it that nothing could be explored in detail.
Yeah,
Found the monster
that is
to be
the
pretty
other
lame,
thing.
and I wish they explored more about her dad and ditched the Olympics as a side plot.
Yeah,
But I mean, admittedly,
well,
the Olympics obviously plays into it somehow. But back then, I remember being at school, like in my first year of secondary, and the Olympics was just on everyone's minds. Even though it's still like 4 or 5 years away.
Yeah, I was going to say, because doesn't it get announced at the end of the previous Olympics, like what city is next taking over?
It's a little bit earlier. I think I was at primary school because I very clearly remember going out on a break time and my teacher saying to us, they're going to announce who's won the Olympics for 2012, and we were coming back in, and she was like, we got it for 2012, but this was still like, I think it might have been like 2006 actually, so it's quite a few years before. That's probably why the Olympics was such a
because it had just been announced
because
that it was coming to us, and it was all
suddenly
exciting
patriotism at its finest, like when England do well in national football, international football, like the World Cup and now the Euros. So that's probably why. But yeah, Adam's right. The dad should be explored more. I think that would have made it much more interesting and given it more depth because, as he said, lots of stuff is thrown in here. And
he's kind of just like a bit of a boring subplot, isn't he? Really.
Yeah.
Like a D plot, not even like a B plot, like a D plot.
No. Melissa says that an average episode, but not a bad one.
Exactly.
Saying that the Olympics ending is cheesy, but it's very on brand for Russell T Davies, which you're completely right about.
Yeah.
And the Ten and Rose relationship is great.
Yes, I agree with that. I think the points that make it okay are basically sort of Tennant and Rose relationship.
They are the good bits, but the plot and sort of the things surrounding that narrative specifically are like, yeah. Adam Burke says that personally they actually like the episode.
Fair enough.
That's totally fair.
To each his own and all that jazz.
Catherine, one of the most recent thoughts on this is that they only disliked Fear Her because the mum was such an idiot and kept letting her daughter have drawing supplies.
I mean,
but Love and Monsters wound up being so disappointing. So, which it did.
I also do agree that the mum was stupid. Because she clearly knew that the drawings were the problem. Like, you can't be paying that much attention to your child and not realising that the kids that are going missing are suddenly the kids in your daughter's drawings.
Another parallel to Love and Monsters with her, the father in not Love and Monsters, Idiot's Lantern. The father in Idiot's Lantern is wanting to cover stuff up for his reputation. This mother wants to cover it up because I guess she's kind of scared, and she does buckle eventually, but usually in a character like that, if they would be denying and covering because they're frightened, they would buckle so much heavier than she did. But she kind of like very almost passively did like step back and go, oh, okay, you know, it's
I think maybe one of the reasons they're calling her out for being stupid though is the concept when she went round and was like, it's okay, I've taken all the pencils off her. It's like, well, you didn't look very bloody hard, did you? Admittedly, the doll's head, very clever place to hide your pencils. However, it's more the ones under the bed sheets. Like, come on, they can't have been difficult
it's
to
like,
find.
It's not even
and the fact that Rose was like, don't leave her alone, and then all of a sudden she's downstairs with a glass of squash, and Rose comes back in and she's like,
that's what I mean.
I told you not to leave her alone. And then all of a sudden the mum's just like, huh? Like, she just kind of stands there and looks at Rose as if to go, what did you say? And it's like, are you even listening right now? And I know that they needed a transition for Rose to be downstairs watching the TV when the audience thing happened. Is it the audience thing? The crowd thing? You know what I mean? When the crowd disappears out of the stadium. Yeah. I know that they needed a reason for Rose to be downstairs when that happened, but also having the bum just suddenly, like, because I said to you, didn't I? I went, Rose literally just told her to not leave the room, and then in the next clip, she's gone. Like, where did she just go, do you know what? Yeah, she'll be alright. She's been alright up till now. Stay in the room, you dickhead.
Yeah. Okay, on to an actual question. Misha asks something we've kind of already discussed, but what are your thoughts on how Doctor Who, which is a family show, tackles or at least touches on big issues like domestic abuse, like they do in this episode? Do you generally think they do a good job? And I think we've kind of like covered that a little bit already, that it's touched upon, and I think it's a fine line to tread to lean into it without getting really controversial and sending lots of people to Ofcom. But
see, I personally think that in this episode, I've already said that I don't think the dad should be in it. However, I think what they did with the dad, you can kind of weigh it up in from two sides. Okay, so from one side, my perspective is, this is from Chloe's point of view, right? So she, in her head, is created this dad drawing that to her is scary and basically is the one, like, her imagination of her dad or her memory of her dad is him going, I'm coming to hurt you, like, I'm not very nice and I'm this, and a big kind of scary character that basically is always going to hurt her. So I can understand that. However, from the other side of the coin, my brain is sort of going, yeah, but like domestic abuse a lot of the time is not just somebody stomping down the stairs going, I'm going to hurt you. And so therefore it's kind of like, it is that I think is where it plays into it of being, who did you say the writer was? Mark something or another?
Matthew Graham.
That's the kind of point where Matthew Graham, obviously, you can tell he wrote it for children, because it's the idea of the nightmare coming to life, the memories that she has of him basically being like, oh, I'm going to hurt you because I'm a drunk and I'm evil. Whereas from a kind of more adult perspective, you can kind of be like, yeah, that's not how abuse works. But also, I guess if you've written this episode more for children, then I guess that's how you would put it across.
It doesn't have that, and maybe not the best word for it. It doesn't have that punch of having that kind of narrative within that kind of plot line within that story. It's kind of there, but it's not. But it is, as said, a difficult line to tread to lean into it without going too far.
They just kind of throw in this subplot where the mum just goes, oh, her dad died a year ago and he was not a very nice person. And that's really all we get. And then occasionally you should go, he's a drunk, he's abusive. It's like, okay, and how is this relevant? And then you sort of see this creature at the back of the cupboard, and it's the whole, oh, I guess Chloe's drawings could come to life. But if that had been the peril from the beginning of Chloe's drawings potentially coming to life, then yes, they would have played into the dad a lot more, and that would have been the issue. But the issue wasn't the drawings coming to life. The issue was the kids being stolen, really, wasn't it? And like the people being stolen. And I feel like the difference in focus...
You had a lot of things that you couldn't really nail down what the big evil of the week is. Mm-hmm. But the dad was kind of shoehorned in to be the very evil sort of explicit evil of the week. Because look at the big angry eyes and baring their teeth and all the red lights and big scary voices. So I feel like probably wasn't handled very well. However, if the circumstances and the writing had been planned a bit more and was a bit different, and they had the opportunity to actually work with the script, then it probably would have been either changed or erased or made a bit better or something like that. So, because we know that the BBC can handle topics like this perfectly well. From their other shows and stuff, it's purely just probably Doctor Who as a family show, and so. But we've seen heavy things be discussed in Doctor Who, so maybe something like this could be better if it would potentially lend into that a bit more. I think if this is an episode that you like the idea of, I don't know, a kid with powers and stuff happening and fear and nightmares and stuff like that. Basically, if you've not actually caught up with all of Doctor Who, just you wait until we watch Night Terrors in Matt Smith's era. A brilliant episode that has a semi-similar sort of kind of aura, I guess, of Fear Her, but it lands it way better.
Not even joking. I literally just got full body chills when I realised which episode you were on about, because
Night Terrors. Night Terrors was the first episode after like probably Blink or Midnight that was properly scary.
Properly freaky. And the reason that Fear Her freaks me out is absolutely nothing compared to how Night Terrors freaks me out. Like, it's basically the same plot, but, like, better, like, million times better.
Think of it like, you know, standard sort of creepy kids, like, you know, clowns and toys and dolls and things being creepy in themselves, and intertwine that with Fear Her and kind of The Empty Child. It's that same kind of thing.
Horrible, but great.
It's really good, but it is terrifying. So that if you felt like there was more to get from Fear Her, just you wait until we watch Night Terrors. I can't remember that's season 5 or season 4. I'm gonna have to check. Season 5 or 6. It's season 6.
Right, I was going to say I don't think it's Matt Smith's first season because
I know that Rory's in it.
Yeah, well that's what I was going to say because Rory becomes a lot more prominent in series 6, doesn't he? And he's in it. So, but yeah, that is a fantastic episode and is basically what Fear Her could have been.
Pretty much. Yeah.
But I reckon they probably looked at Fear Her and went that. But better.
Yeah, that but better and scary. So we're gonna. I'm genuinely like Night Terrors is one of my favorite Matt Smith era episodes. Mm-hmm. I'm very excited when we get to that. But I think that kind of wraps up what we're going to talk about this week about Fear Her. So as we reach the end of it, I'm going to check the poll just one more time. 35 votes. And although it is starting to level out a bit more, 57.1% goes to Fear Her.
Fair.
So I'm sure by the time we record the next part, which will be a 2-parter, so make sure you've watched Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, get the tissues at the flipping ready. We'll have to quickly touch upon where this poll ended by the time we start the next part. So I'm personally happy we've got Fear Her done and out the way because I don't hate the episode, but I'm just like, this is one of those episodes that I probably would skip. Mm-hmm. I'm not usually somebody who skips episodes in a TV show rewatch, but this one I'm like, nah.
I suppose you could just fast forward right to the end and then literally
in terms of Russell T Davies era, it's the episode I can take or leave.
Mm-hmm. But he didn't write it, so
he didn't. No, but. You know, whatever. So yeah, next up we have Army of Ghosts and Doomsday, and I was very excited watching the next time to think, oh, they don't spoil about the big bad that comes back in. Oh, they do. Great. It's like parting of the ways and all over again.
Yeah, they've kind of just
fantastic.
They're kind of gone. Oh, you know those baddies that were like really good in the last 2 series? Yeah, they're back.
That you've not seen since the end of last series. You should bring them back again, but
they're back.
At least they made it a bit more subtle. But you know, if you know Doctor Who. You know exactly what to look for.
Brain fart not working. The Cybermen episode, was that not in series 2?
Yeah, I meant the other the Sphere baddies. Yeah. The Cybermen are fully revealed, but the other ones not so much.
Yeah.
There's an aura towards them. There's certain visuals that you see that's very very clear what they are, but it's not as explicit as alert, we are detected at the end of. Bloody.
I don't know why we're refusing to say their name because everybody knows who we're bloody on about.
Yeah, I know. Just in case. But yeah, that's going to be next time. So make sure you've watched both parts of the end of series 2, and we're going to do our usual 2-part finale. And then it's season 3. We've got Free Marjorie, who we're actually going to see next time, which is fun.
Oh yeah, I saw her in the coming up. I was like, oh look,
she is in the next time. Yeah.
Is she Martha? Is she Martha? No, I didn't think so.
I want to say there's so I might be lying here, but I want to say that there might have been a line in series 3 that alluded to someone she knew worked at Torchwood or something, but I might be completely full of crap.
Or like her twin sister or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Because I feel like why Doctor Who cast producers would you go, she was really great in that episode, but she had a different character name. So let's just like cast her and then
she's literally like in the final 2-parter before she's actually in the show.
Actually the companion.
I mean, I say that admittedly. Karen Gillan is in series 4,
Yeah, but
before
you
she's in
can't.
series 5.
You can't
but then again,
really tell it's Karen Gillan if you're not looking for her.
Fires of Pompeii is like episode 2 of series 4, and then you've still got Tennant's all of his big specials before Matt Smith. So
and
it
also,
felt like there was a bit more of a gap.
She's got face paint on, and you can't really tell that it's her because she's just playing like an offhand character. Whereas Freema Agyeman is literally Freema Agyeman, and then Freema Agyeman.
I've just realised that we haven't actually got series 3 straight after that. We've actually got The Runaway Bride first.
The Christmas special.
Series 2, the Christmas special with Catherine Tate.
Do you know what? Don't hate it. Don't hate it.
Just the only thing about we'll get to Runaway Bride, but the only thing about Runaway Bride is it sets off Donna's character in a really bad light compared to how she is in series 4.
It does.
But we'll get to that. So anyway, thank you all so much for listening. We really appreciate your time. We've hit over 1,200 plays now.
Hey, that's
on the old anchor.fm/Kasterpod. So thank you for all of your love and support and all of your tweets, all of your questions. It means a huge amount to us. So thank you.
It does. It really
Tweet
does.
us at Kasterpod with your questions regarding Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. I took a moment to say Stolen Earth and Journey's End. That's 2
Do you know
seasons
what? I keep trying to say that as well, and I'm like, nope, that was definitely series 1.
Just still has big exterminating dustbins in it, so it's like, oh yeah, okay, sure. But yeah, tweet us at Kasterpod with your questions for that, and tweet us at Kasterpod with all the random stuff. And if you've not seen the poll, it'll have finished
It
by
will
the
have
time
gone
this
by
podcast
now. I
comes
don't know
out.
why you're
So
telling people.
if you get to Twitter and you realise that you've missed the poll, you're able to click on the vote. Just reply to it and say, I would have picked this, I would have picked that. So let us know what you think, whether you think Fear Her or Army of Ghosts, Fear Her or Love and Monsters is worse.
Aren't you?
Mine's on the football, mate. That's what it is.
I think you need to go to bed.
Oh, okay. Amy, where can they follow you and see what you're up to?
You can follow me over on Instagram at Ames_Elizabeth, or if you like cake, Amy Cakes Baking.
Yay. And you can follow me at PickupChangeToe, but most of all, go to twitter.com/Kasterpod at Kasterpod, Kasterpod.
Nice
and until we see you again, be good, take care. We'll see you next time. Make sure you watch the 2-parter. And as said, grab the tissues. Take care, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye.